Okay, good afternoon to all the students and faculties present over here. Today is the final day of the orientation 3-day workshop, which is debating 101. Before we begin this session, I would like to give a recap or gist of yesterday's session, which was given by Aditya Naik. The theme of yesterday's session was the journey of an opinion from disturbance to dialogue. The session was successful in bringing out the core essentials of debating, the unexplored facts of debating, and most importantly, the relevance of having an opinion. It gave the attendees a good insight into the do's and don'ts of debating and formulating an argument. All in all, it emphasized on how the overall presentation of one's opinion can be improved, shaped, and be converted into a substantive argument good enough to be incorporated into debates. So I would now like to hand over the session to Sneha Suresh.
Thank you. Just before I begin my session, I by using the raise the hand function, can all the participants please let me know if you all have received the Excel sheet with your topic and your site that has been assigned. You were asked to fill a Google form in the beginning on day one using the chat box or the raise hand function. Please mention if you received your assigned sites or not. All right. Can at least how many of you all had received the Google form and have filled out the form? Okay, I will drop the Excel sheet again now in the chat box, and I will also request that it be sent through WhatsApp immediately. Students, please take note of what side you've been allotted and the topic. Um, Unfortunately, there was a mix-up. Thank you. All right, till we sort that out, I will give a brief idea of what today's session will be. I will be handling, I think up until now, you have been briefed about how to formulate an opinion, how to formulate your arguments, and various other perspectives like that. Today, we will get a little technical, and I will go into the formats of the different kind of debates that are usually conducted in different universities. I've taken into consideration the three most common debates that are conducted. I will give you a rundown of the format, the sides, and how the protocol is followed. Followed by that, I have also found a video that gives a much more in-depth and clearer explanation of parliamentary debate. Parliamentary debate is without a doubt the most common debate format that you will find in universities and in whatever it is. And it will be a good idea to get a little more briefed about that. So once that is done, we will move into something of a simulation. You will have, once you receive the Excel sheet, you'll be able to see what you have been allotted. Again, this is only the students who have actually filled out the form has been allotted any site. So if students are there without any allotment, I will drop a list of the topics in the chat box. See which you are comfortable with and choose one and choose a side. The I understand that you won't have much time to you will find the drive link on the in the chat box. Please take a look. For those students who have filled out the form, you will find your name with the topics and with the side that you have been allotted. The students who have not filled out the form on day one, your name won't be in the Excel sheet. So take a look at what the topics are, whichever you find yourself comfortable. Please pick one and pick a side, affirmative or against, and see if you can maybe formulate any sort of argument for at least 2 minutes. Considering the number of students we have, I'm not going into a proper simulation. I want to see if we can sort of give you all an idea of how to play make any argument so that you get an idea of what it is. I'll give a rundown of the formats and then we will move into the exercise. If that is okay with everyone, can you all please raise your hand or drop a message in the chat box, one of the two. Students, please note I will be calling out names through the participant list, and hopefully you will be able to speak. Um Only two students up until now have raised their hands. Does that mean y'all want me to repeat what I've said, or are people not present here yet? Okay, fine. Then I'll move ahead now to the formats. If at any point in time you want me to pause or you want me to repeat anything, please uh, drop the message in the chat box or raise the hand, or yeah, preferably the chat box. Uh, yeah, okay, fine. I'll move to the presentation. So the debate format, if I to move to it, there are three main debate formats that you need to be versed with. The first one is parliamentary debate. Parliamentary debate is without a doubt the most common debate format that you will find in different competitions, universities, whatsoever, and it's the most practiced form of debate as well. The second one is the Lincoln Douglas debate. The Lincoln Douglas debate is a value based debate. So the discussions are usually on topics about values and morals, and the cross examination debate is also known as the policy debate. So, this is the kind of format they use to discuss governmental policies and any sort of administrative related policies as well. So, we'll move to the first, which is parliamentary debate. So, the debate is usually two teams, one to propose the motion and one to oppose it. So, the team proposing the motion will be termed as the proposition, the affirmative, or the government, and the opposing team is usually known as the opposition or the negative. So it's a very rigid structured debate, but both sides have uh, they have scripted out exact amount of time each person speaks, when, who speaks what, and it's all moderated by a speaker. So when you are at the debate, you will find that there will be either a madam speaker or a Mr. Speaker that conducts and moderates the debate. So now the teams usually you will find that it's either a 3 versus 3 or a 4 versus 4. So the team members are usually the prime minister or the first affirmative, the deputy prime minister or the second affirmative, and the government whip or the third affirmative. So there are certain times when you have a 4 versus 4 where you have more than one government whip. The negative team is the name of the titles of the members are leader of the opposition or the first negative, the deputy leader of the opposition or the second negative, and the opposition whip or the third negative. Now, when you look at how the order of the debate goes, you will find that it alternates. So basically, what happens is you will have from your proposition side, you will have your first speaker. Then you will have the opposition laying out their proposed opinion. Then you come back to the proposition side, and then you go back to the opposition side. So it moves to alternate forms of discussions. Now, you must note that towards the end, when you have your summary statements and when you're giving your opposition replies or your government replies, you are not allowed to introduce any new arguments. Now, what I mean by this is all previously made statements can be brought up again and summarized, but you can't find or rather state any new arguments in your summary statements. So I will show a video on the parliamentary form of debate after I explain the other two, because this is the most common debate and there's a very well explained video that I have found. Now, your Lincoln Douglas debate is also called the value debate. So your value debate, it basically means you're discussing moral issues. Uh, for an example, you discuss issues related to capital punishment. Is it morally right for the state to take a life? Abortion, should the government or should any other person have a right on a woman's body and what they do with the child? Or euthanasia, should the government allow a person to take their own life? So any sort of discussion that has any sort of root with moral issues and propositions of value, anything that is founded on principles and thought processes, they usually move in a Lincoln Douglas debate. So the debate format for this is basically you will have two teams, and it's usually one versus one. So again, you go ahead and make and you will also have a moderator, which will again be the speaker. This again changes from each format to format or rather the organizer, but it's usually a one versus one debate where you will discuss moral issues. So it's for the positive side versus the negative side, and you alternate, and each round is going to be marked. So after each round, one of the members, the moderator, will decide which side has won the point. And after the pre-decided number of rounds, they look at who has the more number of points, and that person is declared the winner of the debate. Now, the next format that you have to know about is the cross examination debate. So, the cross examination debate is also called a policy debate. So, the policy debate is basically you discuss topics of public or government policy, administrative issues, or any sort of concept that affects society as a whole. Now, for example, discussions about if the federal government should own and operate the railroads, all electric utilities should be governmentally owned and operated. Should we have a private sector and a public sector difference? Should there be different policies that apply to public companies and to private companies? These are kind of discussions that take part in that are taken into consideration in a cross examination debate. Again, the format for this is two teams with two students each, which would be so it's basically a two versus two debate. Now, one representing the affirmative position and the other representing the negative position. Again, you alternate by alternate speakers, so it's one positive, one negative, one positive, one negative. pre-decided the number of rounds, and that is as per the organization. Now, coming back to the parliamentary form of debate, you will notice that there are very specific time restraints when it comes to parliamentary debates. So, this is again pre decided by your organizer about what the scripted time is going to be. But usually, you find it to be somewhat as around 5 to 8 minutes for your first speaker is usually the set amount of time. There is no minimum amount of time in parliamentary debates, but there are maximum amount of time. This varies based on organizers, but you will find that it comes to about 5 to 8 minutes for your usually 8 minutes for your first affirmative, that's your prime minister and your leader of opposition, and other speakers are usually given about 5 to 6 minutes. So you can expect an entire session or one round to go about clearly easily to about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And then you will have your sessions about, you will have your summary arguments. Again, in your summary arguments, you need to take note. You cannot introduce any new information or new arguments. You have to ensure that it is the points that have already been discussed, that have already been brought up in committee, in the session, as and to be summarized in the end. Are there any questions up until now? Today's session is going to be more about the interaction from the students. Up until now, I believe you all have been uh, given an idea of how to form arguments and different sort of the opinions, logical fallacies have all been covered. Today's session is just me being a moderator, if for in the simplest way to explain it. I give an idea of the formats and then we will move into the arguments from the students. Students, please, I need participants, I need some sort of sign if you want me to move ahead or not. Either raise the hand or please put it in the chat box. Can I move to the next topic?
Sorry to interrupt you, Sneha. I guess Srishti has a question. You can unmute yourself and you can ask a question, Srishti.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
No, I don't have a question. You just asked if you could move ahead, so I raised my hand. That's
Okay,
all.
okay, all right, fine. Thank you. Okay, then I will do one thing. Students, please take a look at the Excel sheet. If you haven't been allotted a topic or a side, please pick a topic amongst those discussions that we have in place. I will move to the video explanation. It's about 6 minutes. Can one student please put in the chat box if the audio is clear or not?
Debate is basically a structured discussion. So you have some debate formats that are more open, like a presidential debate or a town hall debate where groups of people debate against each other, or you have debate formats that are far more structured.
Can one student please just unmute and tell me if it's clear and if you all can hear? All right, then I will let the video play. Once the video is done, we'll move into a few questions, and after that, we will move to the simulations.
Hello there. Today we're going to talk about the format of a debate. A debate is basically a structured discussion. So you have some debate formats that are more open, like a presidential debate or a town hall debate where groups of people debate against each other, or you have debate formats that are far more structured, that carefully tell you how much time each person has to speak, and so on and so forth. Every format has some kind of rules because those rules serve to preserve order and to try to create some balance. The rules don't really determine who wins and loses a debate. Debating isn't about the rules. The rules are there to create balance, to tell people how much time they have to speak, and so on and so forth, right? So in every debate format, there'll be something or some direction about the topics, about the timing, about the speaking order, and maybe a little bit of stuff about the speaking, about the judging criteria. How do you decide which team wins and which team loses? Today, we're going to focus on the Asian parliamentary debate format. This is a format that's widely used in Asia among university and high school students, and I think it's a good format for which to learn how to debate, right? So I'm going to talk about the speakers and the order of speakers, and then talk about the timing, and talk about topic selection, and finally talk about points of information, essential parts of this format. Firstly, let's look at the speakers and the speaking order, or the teams in the speaking order, rather, sorry. In the Asian parliamentary debate format, you have two teams. One team is called the government team, and the other team is called the opposition team. Sometimes it's referred to as, the affirmative and the negative. The names don't really matter that much, but just in order for us to understand terminology. The government team will always support the topic, and the opposition team must oppose the topic. You usually won't have a choice over whether you are the government or the opposition on a topic. Each team will have 3 speakers, 3 in government and 3 in opposition, and they will speak in alternating order. So first you will have one speaker from the government, and then from the opposition, and then the government, and then the opposition, and then the government, and then the opposition. Each speaker will speak for 7 minutes, right? So an entire debate will take 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. That's 42 minutes, right? But hold on. At the end of those 42 minutes, both the teams get to make an extra speech. How exciting is that? It's a kind of a summation speech where you are comparing the teams and you're trying to persuade the judge why my team wins over the other team. So it's not really a speech where you're making many new arguments, but we'll get into those details later. Hold on, some patience. So at the end of those 6 speeches, the government and the opposition, at the end, the teams get to make a reply speech. Now this speech is shorter. Remember, the earlier speeches were 7 minutes long. This speech will only be 4 minutes long. And remember earlier, the government team started the debate by making the first speech. This time, the opposition team will start by making the first reply speech. So in essence, the government team always starts the debate and they always end the debate by having the last reply speech. Okay, so that's the teams, the 2 teams, the speaking order, and the timing, right? Now we come to the topic selection. Every debate needs a topic. In the Asian parliamentary format, what happens is you'll usually be given 3 topics to choose from. So you and the other team can compare and choose the topic which you both like to debate the best. How this is done is teams will rank the topics. So the government team ranks the topics 1, 2, and 3, opposition ranks 1, 2, and 3, and then you compare your rankings. The topics which you rank 3rd will not be debated. They will cancel each other off. So if the government team ranked the first topic 3rd, the opposition ranked the second topic 3rd, then the first and second topics are cancelled, and you will debate the 3rd topic. In the situation where teams rank the same topic 3rd, but reverse the other 2 rankings, then you have to flip a coin to decide who gets their first choice. And if both teams rank the same topic first, then you debate that first topic, okay? The only other thing with Asian parliamentary format, the last part I'm going to talk about, is called points of information. Now, when speakers are speaking, between the 1st and the 6th minute of every speech, speakers from the other side have the opportunity to rise up and offer a question. So you can say, point of information, can I ask a question on that point, or something to that effect. Now, if I'm speaking, I can choose whether or not to accept this interruption, right? So I can say, yes, go ahead, ask your question, or make a statement or a comment. You can say anything you want, but it usually has to be short. It's about 15 seconds long. It's about 2 sentences, right? So you can get up, you can say, you ask your question and say a comment, and then I have to respond to it. I don't have to accept every question, but if I accept a question, I must respond to that question. So this adds a huge element of interactivity to the debate, okay? So every speaker government speaker and opposition speaker have the chance to be questioned by the other team during their speech. You can only ask questions or points of information to the other team and not to your own team. And you should take at least one, preferably two points of information in your speech. There are no points of information in the reply speech. So only points of information in the first 6 speeches of the debate, right? Those are the essential parts of the Asian parliamentary debate format. You have the speaking order, the teams and the speaking order, the timing, topic selection, and points of information, right? So teams win a debate not by being better at the format, but by making a strong position on the topic, by giving strong arguments to support that position, by rebutting the arguments of the other team, and by comparing each other's arguments and positions. The format is just a structure that ensures that happens in a fair and balanced way. Let's watch a demonstration debate and see and analyze if all what I said is true. It definitely is true. But watch this debate and get an example.
Okay, can I have some clarifications from the participants now? Have you all made sense of whatever has been said till now? Any questions before we move to the next? Students, please. I will send the link to the video soon. But before that, I need to understand if do I need to explain anything else? Because I want to move to the argument-based simulation, the exercise. Do you have any questions about the topics that I have mentioned? Has everyone taken a look at all the topics that have been mentioned? No. As of now, obviously, I cannot give each person 7 minutes to speak. We have to wind up by 4 o'clock. So what I will do now is we will take just 2-minute arguments. So just for you to get an idea of how to say something. So 2 to 3 minutes each person. If hopefully everyone will take the initiative to speak. But yeah, so I won't be giving 7 minutes a person now. It's not feasible for the time constraint we have. I was looking at around 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Do you want me to explain what the topics are? I will read out the topics that were decided in the group. Sorry, on the Excel sheet, if anyone hasn't been able to access it. So the discussions are, the topics for debate will be, the first one will be all people must have the right to own guns. One. Second, climate change is the greatest threat facing humanity today. Third, all people should have universal basic income. 4. Euthanasia should be banned. 5. Vaccines should be made mandatory for all citizens. 6. Governments should invest in alternative energy sources. 7. The development of artificial intelligence will help humanity. 8. The final one, the abrogation of Article 370 was valid. Are there any other questions or doubts? Okay, so we're exactly at 3 o'clock right now. Students are participants, take 10 minutes now. Don't leave the Zoom meeting. It's a request. Please don't leave the meeting. Please stay on the meeting. Take 10 minutes to do a quick skim on the topic or whatever it is, or even if you want to speak from what you've understood yourself or what you already know about the assigned topic, please go ahead and form an argument. And an argument for around 3 minutes. I will be calling out the participant names through the list. You take a look at the Excel sheet. If you have been assigned a topic and assigned a side, please stick to that. Or if you are extremely uncomfortable with those assigned this one, then okay, you can choose for yourself. There was a miscommunication on our side that the Excel sheet did not reach you all in time. I am extremely sorry about that. But right now we will have to make do with what we can. So take about 10 minutes. Some of the topics are extremely general and you should be able to form an argument. Please make note of everything that you learned over the last two sessions and accordingly formulate an argument. So about 10 minutes, I will start calling out participant names by 3:10. Please don't leave the Zoom call as of now. There's a question we have to research and speak. If you can do a quick read on what the topic is, please go ahead. I understand 10 minutes is not a lot of time, but we have to make do with what we have now. So if any of the topics are something that you already have an opinion on, and it's basically what your opinion is and how you put it across is what's important in a debate. So if you already have a stance on a topic, just try to formulate your arguments and formulate your statements, keeping in mind the things that you have learned over the last two sessions. Okay, please take a look at the topics. I will drop the topics. I think you've already received the topics now on the Excel sheet. Please take a look and please choose a side and this one, and we will start at 3:10. Please do not leave the Zoom meeting. It's a request. Participants, we will start at 3:20. That's another 10 minutes. I understand. I'm sorry for the mix up. This is a mistake on our part that we weren't able to get you your allotments in time. So please bear with us. We'll another 10 more minutes for you all to discuss for your formulating of arguments, and after which we will start with practicing of arguments. Okay. Yes. Um, are we all ready? We are given 20 minutes. Just about 2 minutes you need to give any argument based on the topics. Do we have any volunteers who will start? Okay. Anyway, before we move to that, I will ask Harish to. Yes. So before we move to the arguments from the participant side, I will ask Harish to just give an overview and an example so that you all also have something to base your statements on. Harish, please, could you?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So let's take the first motion that we have. All people must have the right to own guns. Now, I'll share my screen. Host, could you permit me to share the screen, please? Could you permit me to share the screen, Sneha?
I don't have that option. I will need the host. I'm also still just co-host. I'm not able to give the permission.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. All right. So I don't think we'll need that. Now let's for beginners, let's read the motion properly. Now the motion says that all people must have a right to own a gun. Now all the arguments that you made, right? There should be a fundamental premise to what actually you are seeking from your argumentation. If we are to sort of dichotomize the motion, what we get is that there are three terms which need to be focused particularly in this motion. First is all people, right? All people, regardless of any categorization, must have. The second term is right, right to do what? Right to own a gun. So if I am to structure arguments, then I will lay it on three premises. I will lay whatever arguments or whatever examples that I'm giving on three premises. The first premise would be arguments based on insufficiency of the authority. And the logic behind that argument would be that it is not practical for the state to ensure security of each of its citizens, right? So that's the first premise that I'm laying down. The second premise to substantiate my arguments would be argument based on self-interest. Well, I can establish that in interest of natural right of self-preservation, that every human being around you, regardless of what class, gender, creed, whatever they belong to, or any interest group they belong to, all of them have a natural right of self-preservation, and therefore they must be permitted to protect themselves against any harm or apprehension of harm that may come upon them. This is the second premise. The third premise that I would lay in for the motion of this argument would be that argument based on a larger interest of society, that if I am equipped with a weapon to protect myself, that I can extend the same uh, security or safety that I have to surrounding against any potential threat may arrive. Now, these three premises, and I will relate my entire speech of 7-8 minutes to these three arguments that I've stated, and I would be giving examples for that. For example, let's say that US is very infamously known for the school shootings and shootings at public places that occur, right? Like some psychopath goes around with a gun and then shoots and kills everyone. Now, this is an example which can be used by the opposition as well. So what I would try to do is I would try to support or take this example which leans in favor of the opposition, and I will try to use it in my favor. So I'll give them an example. well, the most infamous was of Virginia Polytechnic Institute, which happened in 2007, which killed almost around, I think, 30 plus people. So I would say that had been permission given for teachers and everyone, or had anyone in the school premises there would have had a gun to counter the threat, then probably less number of people would have died, or the number of fatalities could have been reduced. Then I can take other examples of the New Zealand mosque shooting which took place. Had the gun laws been more liberal and had anyone been permitted to carry a gun or have a gun, in that case, there was fair chance that the shooter probably, would have been shot by someone who was attending the prayer, or who was about to attend the prayer and had a gun handy. So these would be my three premises. And so before you form an argument, have a premise ready, that what exactly are you seeking, and how are you justifying your arguments, and how are you supporting your arguments. Well, again, like yesterday Aditya spoke about how you can strengthen the argument that you're putting across. Strengthening a way would be that if I'm talking about argument based on self-interest, I'll probably bring out someone who has stood up for natural rights, right? Like if I'm talking about societal interest, then I may bring up John Rawls. For that, like I must know what John Rawls has said about security and rights related to that. So I may bring up that. I may bring up, when I'm talking about natural right of self-preservation, I may bring up St. Augustine. So, but the premise of my arguments would remain the same. And the premise is based on these three points that I've taken: that insufficiency of the authority, that it's not possible for the state to ensure safety to all of us, right? And then it's my natural right to act in my self-preservation, and I need a gun for that. That can be substantiated. Then a larger interest of society. Now, when you're talking from opposition on the same topic or proposition, then you will have lot of points that can be reverted back. That the what's the chances that the one who's owning a gun will be using it cautiously? Then you can just revert the same arguments back, that the Virginia or the school shootings occurred because gun came handy to people who use those. So, but the premise would be the same. The three arguments. You can, if you're in opposition, you can raise a question on regulation of these gun ownerships. You can raise a question on categorization, because the proposition directly is stating that all people. So, will you permit a minor who is 15 years old to own a gun? Does he also get the right to own a gun? Such questions, they get you brownie points and serve you well. That this is, I think, a little example. Uh, is that will that be enough, Sneha?
Yeah, thank you, Harish. All right, we'll move to calling out participant names. Guys, if y'all are willing to speak first, please go ahead and raise your hand, or else I will call out random names from the participant list. We still have another 30 minutes, so I want to try and get at least about 10 to 15 people, give them a chance to speak. So please raise your hand, or I will call out names randomly from the participant list. Is there someone ready to? Okay, since no one's raising their hand, fine. I'm just going to call a name randomly from the list. There's is Kushi Kumari Gupta present here? Okay, so no response. is Abhigna. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So the topic that I'll be talking for is climate change is the greatest threat faced by the humanity today. I would strongly agree with it, as in because the other things that are said to be the greatest threats, as in the terrorism, the human rights issues, and other stuff, are predictable and they're preventable in nature. But the climate change is not preventable, and they are the basic necessities being affected due to the climate change. Food, water, air. When the basic necessities are under threat, there could be nothing greater than that. The recent events that the humanity has been affected due to climate change would be um, Cape Town facing day zero in 2017 and 18, wherein people were confined to line up in roads for the water rationing, and they were provided with 25 liters per week. And in 2019, where an Amazon forest had a forest fire, and parts of Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, and most of the other places there had pollution and health issues. And in 2019-20, Australia, New South Wales faced a forest fire again. So when the whole earth is under threat, there could be nothing more greater to humanity. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask, do you have any questions as such? Will you entertain a question from me in the argument you made?
Yeah, sure.
You made the statement, climate change is not preventable. Correct?
Yeah.
Don't you think that's a logical fallacy? How is it not preventable?
There can be, remedial steps taken towards it, but in a long run, you don't know if it's really working.
But aren't there proven studies about reducing your carbon footprint can in fact reverse the effects of climate change?
But how do you expect a large number of people to be taking part in it? You for a certain period, until or unless there's a trend moving on, people tend to follow it, but in a long run they tend to skip it and move forward.
So wouldn't something like policies and introduction of laws make a difference? Don't you think that could sort of force people to keep it in the long run, like banning of plastic and other sort of
But
initiatives?
in reality, do you think has it come into picture? Because banning of plastic has happened long ago, and we could still find plastic covers and plastic non-recyclable plastic even today being used in the city and other parts of the country as well.
Okay, noted. Fine. Thank you for speaking. Okay, I'm going to call out more names. Is Suhas Edwin? Are you present?
Yes, I am.
All right. Would you be willing to give an argument?
Sure, I can.
All right.
So I'm going to be talking against the topic whether artificial intelligence is going to be helpful, if development of artificial intelligence is going to be helpful. And I'm going to give my arguments which are based against it.
Go ahead.
I have two main points to put forward. The first is artificial intelligence causes a deep concern regarding security and privacy. The concept of AI and which is its next level, which is nothing but machine learning. It essentially is the study of human behavior and patterns, and this can cause identity theft. if it is gone into the wrong hands. And not only that, the government could also misuse it. So the people must be concerned because it is their identity, their data, and their information which is going into the wrong hands. And there was recent news where in China um, uh, there was an uprisal by the people where they were against AI because AI took information like face reading and also DNA analysis, if I'm not wrong, to to get to know more about people. So AI isn't really a good thing in that aspect because it can be misused if fall into the wrong hands. And my second point would be is that AI lacks creativity. There can be no better or complex machines than human beings themselves. And no amount of artificial intelligence can replace that. And even if we allow artificial intelligence to take over jobs that were primarily run by human beings, that could cause unemployment. And we all know that at certain times, it is best that human beings take the decisions because we cannot trust machines. We cannot trust machines to make very important decisions at crucial times. Now, I remember there was this car, self-driven cars testing. At that time, there was a problem. The car had to face a situation where it had to decide whether it had to go over an elderly couple or a young child, and it decided to go to run over the elderly couple rather than the child. But if it was a human being in place, I don't think um, that would have been the situation. Like a human being would try its maximum to avoid either of the situations. Probably even crash the car somewhere else rather than go over any one of them, than jeopardizing the life of the passenger in the car. So that's where AI plays a negative role, and that's why I strongly oppose it. Thank you. I only could prepare that much.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Yes. You can ask me questions if you want. If
No, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you. Yes, Chandni Jaswal, you've raised your hand. Would you like to speak?
Yes.
Yes, please do go ahead.
Okay, so I'm against the topic of all people must have right to own guns. So it
Yes,
should
please go
not
ahead.
be, yeah, it should not be a basic right. It's about individual having ability to protect themselves against predator. But there are plenty of reasons that shouldn't all people should have a gun. That there is a murder case increasing again and again, time to time. More number of death is happening, and if, for example, a person who gets angry fast would might kill any person for whom they get angry, and there should be a regulation for above 18 years of people who that should not get a gun. The right to keep arms is a right for people to possess weapon for their defense, and that right should not be given to all of them. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Just a suggestion. So when you're making these kind of arguments, you can add statements like introduction of background checks and even mental health screening, because you talk about how anger plays a role and losing your temper and misusing the gun. So to strengthen your argument, you can probably use the mental health aspect. So those kind of screenings aren't taking place or background checks aren't taking place, and therefore you would end up misusing um, the gun. Harish, you have anything you want to add on?
Good point, Chan. Now, I'll just a few more general instructions that I have. So you must think, like, if you have to dig deeper into the gun argument, right, you realize that the proposition is seeking permission of something. Now, permitting something for the state is very easy instead of restricting it. So if you're talking about permitting something, that's easy, like you just sign a few papers and there is no onus on the state whatsoever. So that's easy. Now, whereas if you have to restrict or regulate something, that demands more arguments because the person who's seeking permission, right, has a right to seek that permission. He's extending his right and he's seeking to extend his right. Now, you are the one, the opposition is actually trying to curtail what he's seeking. So, in either in respect of that curtailment that you are seeking, so the onus by default is on you to substantiate with more objective facts that you can provide, right? Like so the proposition will have or can afford to make vague arguments, right? They may say that this is my right. Now that having a right is that's rather a very vague statement, and that needs to be justified in a more philosophical context, so to speak. Now, the opposition will have to bring a lot of objective facts from countries that see XYZ countries have liberal gun laws and it's not serving them well. So you must recognize when you read the motion that is your motion or does your motion allow you to take a more philosophical stance, or does your motion require you to be more objective and fact oriented? This also should be an approach that you should have as soon as you see the proposition. This is another bit just which I wanted to add. Over to you. Now we have quite plus we would really appreciate if all of you folks can, like we are not bounded by time as such today, Sneha, right? We can extend it a little bit. But what we would request is for all of you to talk, because you would realize that what others are talking, you can also come up with those points. And in famous words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, before someone else realizes your thoughts and then you relate that these are my thoughts, so speak your latent convictions, and no one is actually here to pass a judgment on you whether you're talking right or not. Just speak whether you are sure or unsure of it. That's the purpose. Just lay out your arguments, that's all.
Okay, we have a few more people who have raised their hand. Prakalpa, can you please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, just let me know your topic and the side you're choosing, and you can start your argument.
I'll be speaking for the motion. The abrogation of Article 370 was valid. So on 17th of October 1949, the Article 370 was implemented as a temporary provision, which was basically the special rights given to Jammu and Kashmir, and they were lawfully given in their own constitution. And as we all know, on 5th August 2019, the government of India took away these rights, and they were told that the Indian constitution will be applicable. I strongly believe that this abrogation of Article 370 is valid because it helps uniting Kashmir with our country. The RTI and RTE, that is right to information and right to education, will be applicable. Minorities will be getting their reservations, and the women in Jammu and Kashmir can retain their rights and citizenship even if they marry someone outside the state. And public and foreign investments will increase, which will boost their economy. And terrorism, one of the most main problem in Jammu and Kashmir, can be curbed as the authorities will be in a better position. And the medical and educational facilities will be much more better. Jammu and Kashmir will basically be open for development, and people can buy lands there. Their economy can boost, and Parliament can make laws on them. And also, in case of any dispute, the Supreme Court judgments will also be valid in that state. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have Malikarjun Ravi. You have also raised your hand.
Yeah, today I'm taking the topic of climate change is the greatest threat facing humanity, and I'm for the motion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I believe that we are on the threshold of frightening new era Never before has humankind's abuse of the environment put the whole world in danger. This is what climate change does. It has become the very greatest threat to our planet and everyone on it. The greenhouse gases that cause climate change have a delayed effect, like a disease with a long incubation period. We do not have much irreversible. We do not know how much irreversible damage we have already done, but we know that if we don't act now, the effects will be many more devastating still. The burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil emits CO2, that is greenhouse gas, but the poor nations suffer the most from it. Everyone is threatened in long run. The climate change is also due to large scale deforestation, mining, industrial pollution. It also causes floods in coastal areas, droughts, wildfires, and the melting of icebergs due to heat. It is also risking the health adversities of old man and the poor people. Substitutes such as global warming, ozone layer depletion are some of the effects caused due to climate change. Climate change has also revolutionized the environmental debate. At one time, talk of saving the planet was a rather meaningless slogan. Climate change means that now it is for real. In order to overcome, we need to start using renewable energies, invest in energy efficient appliances, reduce water wastage, use of biofuels, solar energy, and electric energy and renewable energies, and also take measures to reduce carbon by setting a price on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Chandrika Sharma, you've raised your hand. Can you please
Yes,
unmute?
ma'am.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving me the opportunity. Good afternoon to all the respected teachers here. My topic is climate change is the greatest threat facing humanity today. So I'm against of that. Um, greatest threats to the human species are like man-made. They are like artificial intelligence, global warming, nuclear war, roughly biotechnology, environment problems like which we are facing this time, like air pollution due to the Diwali celebration, cyber crime, corruption and malpractices, money laundering, drugs, depression, and the biggest one is the COVID, the pandemic which we are going through, and we do not have the vaccine, and the whole nation we are actually in a kind of era where we do not have the vaccination, do not have the proper medication of that, and this is like a pandemic era, and we are living and we don't know how to tackle with this. So we have actually the very things which we have to resolve. We cannot say that the only climate change is the greatest threat which we have to face. Like recently, yesterday's it was in news, India's Pakistan relationship and the line of control, uh, that interference of Pak occupied Kashmir. Because of that open trade system we are following, so we do not have that visa policy there. People from India, Pakistan, or India from Nepal to India, they are coming directly to the India, and like we are even facing the problem of terrorism activities, the supply of weapons, drugs, women taskari, like prostitution, which we know that in the every corner of the city, like in Delhi itself, if I say red light area, then we are facing like that much issue. So which is coming, which is not even in our hand. Money laundering is like the one of them, and one of the biggest thing is also that we are highly populated one of the country, 130 crore people are staying here, and we do not have the proper education system, and uh, the basic sanitation, healthcare systems are also not like in a good condition. Women's safety, that this is also a biggest issue, ma'am, because there's a Hathras issue or the Nirbhaya Khan, which already it happened in UP, and Nirbhaya Khan, it was the most threatening example of Delhi. By seeing these all things, which we came under the threat that women are not safe in our India. That can be the biggest issue which we need to think. Even our lawmakers, we do need to think, like the MPs, they need to make more uh, strong, more like punishable thing, so that the people think before doing it. Women's safety should be like the most prominent one, and poverty. And we should not think that we are living in a male society where women seems like the lower, means their safety is one of the problem, and insufficiency of judicial process even, which we face, that the system, because we have that process which takes the time a lot. We system needs to think about it. I
Please wind
think.
up. You've reached the time limit.
Thank you, ma'am. I want to speak a lot, but because of less timing, I could just talk that much. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank you for taking this one. Priya Darsha, you've raised your hand.
Good point, Chandrika.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. So I'm going to talk about euthanasia. I'm against the topic, ma'am.
Okay.
So why I'm against it? Because my point is, my first point to make is suffering, ma'am. So when we look into the patients, like a patient suffering from pancreas cancer, lung cancer, and other critical conditions of cancers, ma'am. In some cases, where they are in a last stage of cancer. So in such cases, investing money in their cure is actually goes in vain, ma'am, because it's sure they are it's not possible to cure them. So investing money on them is first of all the monetarily they will be under loss, ma'am. They not the patient, the belongings of the patient or legal head. They may invest the money on them, so there will be a lot. Loss of investment, then suffering of the patient. Second point of mine is suffering of the patient. They will go under a lot of sufferings, ma'am, where they are not able to sustain it. So it's better to it's more better to die than suffer from such kind of pains and sufferings in some illness problems like cancer and other diseases, ma'am. And my third point is burden faced by family and relations, friends, ma'am, financially and mentally. So the relatives and family members of the respected patients will usually suffer a lot of trauma financially and mentally, ma'am. And allotting them, admitting them in a hospital, or allotting a caretaker or taking care of themselves, mm, usually usually irritates them, and how to say, I'm not getting the exact point. And